Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, it's almost the weekend, which doesn't mean that much if you're already working from home.
Yeah, and if you are paying attention to or you're adhering to the current advice of social distancing, I know weekdays and weekends aren't very different. The kids are home. A lot of people are working from home or are not working because the businesses or their employers have closed the business down. So, yeah, but I mean, we can still celebrate it in some way.
Yeah, well, you can always celebrate health and life.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot to get into right now, but before we do, we got to check in on our weather. And we have, we don't have Francisca on the line, so what we'll do is go ahead and read the prepared forecast. So the general situation is for fair, warm, and dry conditions to prevail.
And for today, our 24-hour forecast, we are looking at sunny skies today and some partly cloudy skies tonight, and there is expected to be little or no rainfall developing.
All right, our winds are going to be moving from the east at 5 to 15 knots, and the sea state is light choppy.
And the general situation, we are looking at fair conditions that are going to be prevailing through Friday and Friday night.
And all right, and our high temperatures?
Yeah.
86 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 94 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills.
And our lows, we are looking at 78 degrees on the coast, 72 inland, and 68 up in the hills.
All right, and that's our weather forecast for today. Dry season is officially in gear. It is warm, but we do have just a bit of wind. I mean, if you're in the shade, it's not so bad.
True.
Yeah. All right, let's keep things moving with our eye opener for this morning. And our eye opener taken from dailyom.com goes like this. Finding joy and reason in mundane tasks can shift the flow and make it not so bad after all. Spending an afternoon working on the car, gardening, or even cleaning the house can be fun when we have an interest in the project. Yet, we can also find joy in the chores and tasks we don't especially like. All we need is a change of attitude, a different approach, a little music or some help from friends, and the tasks or responsibilities that we perceive as tedious can become a source of pleasure. Most of us tend to put off what it is that we don't want to do. Yet one of the best approaches to an unpleasant task or dull chore is to dive right in and be fully mindful of what it is that you are doing. Playing your favorite music, dancing while you work, or creating a mental list of everything you are grateful for are just a few ways to turn an unexciting activity into a fun event. Asking a friend to help you clean out the basement or paint a room provides some yummy snacks as an incentive. Look for joy in doing your mundane activities, and they'll become a source of enjoyment rather than a tolerable duty.
Well, you know, what better eye opener can we start with?
We were just saying.
Considering what we opened with, right? Yeah, of course, if you are social distancing, if you're staying at home, if if you're there with the kids especially, now is one of the best times to put something like this into practice. I know even myself personally, because I've started to work from home for the past few days. And every now and again, just being there, you realize you get all these ideas, and you get almost distracted by wanting to do some like little chores or some extra work around the house. And I've actually started to enjoy it. Like, in terms of, like yesterday, I think I reorganized my closet, and and like the eye opener said, finding joy in those little mundane tasks
Yeah.
is sometimes hard because they do feel like chores a lot of the time. But if you take them at your own pace, or if you do find a fun way to do it, and especially like if you have kids and you're home with them right now, it's a great chance to make some fun out of these kind of activities that can be kind of boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a really good message to start with, and I'm sure that it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a very timely eye-opener, with a few exceptions, of course, calling your friends.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's not exactly fitting within what's being prescribed for social distancing. The point, though, is that yes, it's going to be a bit tiring to be within the same walls of your home. But you can change how you feel about the things that you're doing. Even cooking
Oh, yeah.
can be a really great opportunity. Even cooking can be a really great opportunity for you to get people involved in the process. So maybe you're the sole cooker in the house, but you get everyone on board and you help them, get them to help you chop vegetables, get them to help you do whatever other things that you need to do. And you have an experience out of it. Put on some music, play around, and try to enjoy the time being with your loved ones.
Exactly, and I think that near the end of the message, when they were speaking about even if you're not doing an activity, trying to make a list of the things that you're grateful for
Yeah.
is especially important at times like this, when the world is experiencing so much turmoil and so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
If you do have a home and your life is somewhat stable, that's a great starting point to become to start thinking about what you are thankful for, what you're grateful for the people in your life who are close to you, who are who offer so much to you. And it can also be a great time to take stock of all the things that you have and all you've achieved that got you this far. It's definitely going to be beneficial, especially if you are experiencing difficult times, which I know a lot of us are right now. A lot of industries have taken hits, so a lot of people have been laid off or without jobs right now. So it's easy to feel hopeless in those kinds of situations. So if anything, right now is a great time to evaluate what's going on in your life, what you're thankful for. Try to find silver linings, and also look for new opportunities, because part of doing these sort of tasks or relaxing into sort of these new routines, you can also like put you in a good frame of mind to start new activities as well.
Absolutely. All right, but I think that is a great way to shift your mindset today, especially if you are doing another work from home day, another homeschooling day, or whatever it is that you are doing at home. That's where you're supposed to be. Unless you're required to go to work, you should be at home. Right? But we're going to keep things moving this morning, and it's time for some information on what's the latest with COVID-19 in Belize. And so we're going to shift gears to our COVID-19 update, right? And of course, the first thing that we want to talk about is the second confirmed case in the country. The Prime Minister at his press conference announced that the 38-year-old woman from San Pedro who arrived last Thursday has actually passed the virus on to her mother. Her mother tested positive. I think this is, and at this point, we are being told that the mapping exercise has started to find out who all the mother has now come in contact with or has been in contact with since, I'd imagine, since she first started interacting with her daughter.
Yes, And it was announced yesterday. I think they had said that the mapping exercise they had they had already identified a group of over 60 persons, I think, whom the first positive case may have come in contact with. They haven't tested all 60 of them, but they are looking for people who may be exhibiting symptoms or persons who did come into close contact with the first positive case. And we also know that one of the other developments that has come out of yesterday's press conference is that they've also announced that the state of emergency, which was initially declared for 72 hours on Amberg Risky, has now been extended to 30 days.
To an
additional 30 days, I should say. The Prime Minister did say that it may be subject to change and it may be lesser depending on how the situation does develop. But it is extended for now, and we know that travel has already been restricted to and from the island. Certain, non-essential businesses can't operate, and
yeah, so that's a key point. And I do want to say, there was 34 people that the first patient came in contact with. They've been tested, and the mother tested positive. She will now they'll do that mapping exercise. I think what it does underscore, though, is why there is an importance in self-isolation, because even your parent, I'd imagine if your loved one comes home, it's hard to not interact with your parents or your mother or your loved ones. But this is exactly why, because if you do in fact have the virus, you may be passing it on to them. So those of you in self-isolation or who've been quarantined for returning home, do take that into consideration. This is the exact scenario that we're trying to avoid when you're asked to self-isolate. So take it seriously. Even one interaction can be a cause to, can be an opportunity to pass on the virus.
Yes, and that's especially so if you have traveled recently. This is now this is a recommendation from the World Health Organization at this stage, because we've seen how the virus is continuing to spread globally. So if you have traveled, it is definitely recommended that you do self-quarantine or self-isolate for at least 14 days, because you may have come in contact with it, especially if you are traveling through some very busy ports, if you've been traveling through Europe, through the United States, where really the epicenters of the disease is now. So please do take that quarantine period very seriously if you have traveled recently.
So yesterday as well, as a result of the phase that we are in, where there has been a second contact case that's been established, the Director of Health Services has put together a statutory instrument that will limit a lot of different activities, and that will include closures of a multitude of places. We knew bars, restaurants, casinos, gaming houses, all these things were already closed, and now they've added on some additional places. Looking at, I know the gyms have been closed, restaurants are closing.
Say for takeout, for in-room dining, restaurants have been closed as well. So you do want to keep updated with the information like this, because especially in a situation like this, things do tend to change day to day.
Very rapidly. Which is why we do the update, so you can know what's the latest that is happening. Yesterday as well, the first cohort of Cuban doctors arrived. We know there are two teams that are coming, or they're really just coming on two separate flights, but the first group arrived yesterday. We know that the Cuban Medical Brigade, some of them will be stationed in San Pedro, others will be helping out in other facilities. They are specialists in different areas that will be needed during the course of facing the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday, I believe it was the first about roughly 30 medical professionals who did arrive, and we are expecting another 30. They are going to be treating patients who may contract the COVID-19, and will be, of course, offering other health services. I believe another development that came out of yesterday's press conference is that it was announced that they are going to obtain more ventilators.
Yes.
I believe it was to bring the total number to 10, if I am not mistaken. But that I think 2 have already gotten here, and that more are coming.
Yeah, I can't tell you with certainty.
I'm not-
I
I'm-
know they had ordered more
Yes.
to increase the numbers that we do have, but that's definitely something we can be able to verify. We also know that the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, as a part of their co-chairs of the committee that's overseeing or response to COVID-19, also revealed some of the economic relief packages. And these include 25% off water, and Digi is offering free top-ups and increased bandwidth for customers. They did also say that they will be discussing with Belize Electricity Limited what more they can do. As we know, BL had already said that they could not offer any relief to customers except on a case-by-case basis.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The government did say that the situation is under review and they're considering what options they might explore in relation to that. I believe they did say that they were considering several different options as relates to Belize Electricity Limited, but they haven't announced any definitive plan of action that they're going to do with regards to that. But the other utilities have already stepped up, and we know that they've outlined what they're going to do,
Yeah.
and also the donations that they're going to make towards the relief.
That's right. And also, speaking about the relief, the economic advisors for the committee also revealed how people who've been unemployed as a result of COVID-19 will be offered compensation packages. And so the total sum of that is going to be $150 every 2 weeks. So within every pay period, they're going to receive $150, and they're going to receive it through Social Security Board. They're going to use that as the conduit, and that is going to continue for a duration of 3 months at this time. And of course, they'll look at it a bit further as time progresses.
Yeah, and the Social Security Board was on our show on Tuesday. They did discuss some of the measures that they were taking, and they elaborated more on those at yesterday, or more was revealed about what they were going to be doing yesterday. So we do want to remind you from Social Security's end that you are still allowed to claim your sickness benefits. You can submit those via their Dropbox or via an online form now, because they are looking at reducing person-to-person contact coming into the Social Security facility.
Yeah.
And that's among some of the measures that they're taking as well. And also for the employers, you are required to still file the contributions, but you don't actually have to pay them for the time being.
Yeah. And the last update?
And the last update, of course, is that Lord Michael Ashcroft did gift $10 million for the relief effort of the Ministry of Health. And it's going to be used for obtaining gear and treatment. And as we know from the release that was issued, that money is going to be held by the Belize Bank.
Yeah.
And the funds are going to be used for those purposes and administered through that institution.
Yeah, excellent. So that's our COVID-19 update for today. We do know, and I think this is an aside, but very important issue. We do know yesterday a lot of people were in panic. There was a rumor going around, a voice note going around that people were saying there was going to be a lockdown. The Prime Minister did address it, the Attorney General did address it, and we need to be very careful of where we're believing or where we're getting our sources of information from. It, of course, caused the panic. There were lines at the supermarket again. What that did allow for, though, was for the Prime Minister to clarify that there is always the possibility that we may have a lockdown. And he has clearly stated that it won't be something that'll be sprung up on us. You're not going to wake up and not be able to leave your house. It's going to be something that you'll know ahead of time. More importantly, the essential services will be open and allowed to conduct business. So that will mean, and that this time essential services includes your access to the supermarket, your access to the pharmacy, so you won't need to rush out and get anything. You will be able to do so in due time. So that's a very critical issue that we need to be able to put out there. So if another rumor pops up today, tomorrow, over the weekend, just don't panic, because we have already been told that we will be given enough warning, and that we will still be able to get what we need. He also said that they met with the Ministry of Agriculture about food security, and we do have sufficient supply for the next few months. So we need not worry about that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to that, the Prime Minister also importantly mentioned that apart from the health facilities and food facilities, that financial institutions are also going to be allowed to remain open.
Yeah.
So that if you do need to go to the bank to access, your funds or anything there, that service is also going to remain open as well. So those which are essential to you, which are essential to our everyday lives, are still going to remain open to the extent that they are able to operate if there is a state of emergency or a lockdown declared. That was very clearly said by the Prime Minister yesterday.
And I do want to provide some updates from the San Pedro Town Council as well. They have clarified what residents of the island can expect during the state of emergency. As we said, it will be extended for another 30 days. And so the mayor and, of course, Honorable Manuel Heredia and the San Pedro EOC advised that for the general public that stores that sell essentials and basic necessities will be allowed to operate from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. So they're about to open. They won't be open all day, but they'll be open until 10 a.m. Bakeries and tortilla factories will be allowed to operate from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So your grocery stores will be open till 10 a.m. They're opening around now. Your bakeries, if you want to get baked goods or your tortillas, those places should already be open, and they're also going to close at 10 a.m. Pharmacies will be allowed to operate from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And fuel and butane gas companies will be allowed to operate from 8 a.m. to noon. Bowen & Bowen can resume with its delivery of sodas and water only, which means they can't take out alcohol, and banks will be allowed to operate at their discretion. They're also asking if supermarkets would be willing to go the extra mile and offer delivery service or curbside pickup so that people don't have to leave their homes. And also, even if you are allowed to be open, you must ensure that you're practicing proper hygiene, that you are enforcing social distancing both inside and outside of your establishment, and that the limit of persons who can congregate in San Pedro specifically is no more than 10 persons, and the police will be out to monitor this. So these are some of the things that you want to take into consideration, and do remember that you are not allowed to sell alcohol during this time, and they're reminding us that the police and of course the Coast Guard will be out to ensure that everyone is complying. So even if you have a private boat, you can't be heading out and trying to get off the island. The Coast Guard is there to ensure that you don't.
Yes, exactly. So if you are in San Pedro or were planning to go there, please do keep updated. You unfortunately would have to cancel those plans to travel to the island.
Yeah.
But if you are there, do try to keep abreast of the situation as it develops. And of course, stay safe. At the end of the day, this is all about protecting ourselves and our loved ones and everyone else. So make sure that you keep updated not only with the measures that the government is taking, but also with the relevant information that can apply to take care of your health.
All right, so that's the update for this morning. We are actually getting ready to move into our show for today. We're having a conversation this morning with oncologist Dr. Ellsworth Grant. He is in Los Angeles. We'll be having a video call with him. And he's going to be talking to cancer patients in Belize. Of course, he treats quite a number of them at the Dangriga Cancer Center. And he's going to be talking about how they can protect themselves during this time, and also just telling us a bit about what's happening there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and moving into our second conversation, we know that in the wake of the COVID-19 worldwide pandemic, that one of the hardest hit industries has been the hotel industry. So we are going to be speaking to representatives from the Belize Hotel Association, that they're going to be talking about how they are going to survive the COVID-19 pandemic and what we can look forward to in the future.
All right, and we're closing off. We know that we need to be very vigilant about cleaning. And yeah, we all clean our houses, but are we cleaning it enough? We're going to have some representatives of Carpet Care Plus coming in, and they're going to talk to us about how to properly clean surfaces, making sure that they're disinfected, how often you do it, how you do it. That's going to be the tips that we close off with for today.
Yeah. But before we do close, as always, we do have a very special shout out to make. It is somebody's birthday. So from all of us here at Open Your Eyes on Channel 5, we want to wish a very, very, very happy birthday to Uhuru McCoy. So from all of us here, have a great day. Whether you're isolating or if you do have to be at work, we hope you enjoy it.
That's right. And we're going to take our break, and we'll get our conversation started right after that. So please stay tuned.
With over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited recognizes the importance of leading the way as we enter into this
And we're back, and we're moving into our first conversation for this morning. As we told you earlier, our conversation or show will start off with a conversation with Dr. Ellsworth Grant, who is an oncologist, and of course he is joining us live via Skype to tell us a bit about what cancer patients should be mindful of. Of course, he is one of the founders of the Dangrega Cancer Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
We're so grateful that you agreed to do this interview with us. We know you have a pretty hectic schedule. You're still working in Los Angeles, right?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Although it's hard to tell you're in Los Angeles right now. This place is a ghost town.
Wow. So you have a mandatory lockdown in Los Angeles?
It's called a stay-at-home order,
Okay.
meaning that if you don't have to, it's considered non-essential things to do, then you stay at home, except if you have a dog, you can go walk the dog, go buy groceries, and go out and do the daily things to survive. But other than that, you should stay at home.
Okay.
For us in healthcare, there are still sick people to be seen, and that job never ends. So we still go out to work and see patients, and the only great bonus of a stay-at-home order is that there's no traffic in Los Angeles. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing.
I was telling you before, that in itself is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Get anywhere quickly in LA.
Yes, it is. Even at any hour, you can get anywhere in record time.
Don't tell us how fast you're driving now. So,
Speed limit.
So, Dr. Grant, of course, we know that you have quite a number of patients that you work with in Belize at the Dangrega Cancer Center. And we've been hearing repeatedly about the different vulnerable groups or high-risk groups for COVID-19, and cancer patients are one of them.
Cancer patients are indeed one of those groups. We give patients medications that can affect their immune system and weaken them a bit. So across the board, when you look at how patients are impacted by COVID, cancer patients tend to have a little worse time. However, overall, I would still say that when you look at data coming in, and the best data was from China, that fatality rate was about 5%. So I think there's still this idea that everybody will get COVID, and as soon as it touches you, that you will die. But although the rates are higher and the virus can be severe, but there are people who can survive the virus and do survive the virus, and the majority of people will.
Yes.
And I would also imagine that this situation must be constantly under review because it is, the data is relatively new and the situation is developing worldwide day by day. So are you also looking at, are you also keeping updated with the new data? Because I would imagine that it's a lot.
It's quite a bit, and every day I go and I look and and read, and there's a lot out there, and we do know a lot, but there's certainly a lot that we don't know, and probably the best answers to all of this will come after the crisis abates. But right now the situation is quite fluid, and information sometimes gets a bit loose in how it's translated, but it's still just trying to get the best pieces of information and try to put the puzzle together, recognizing that there is still a lot unknown.
Yeah. So is the cancer center still treating people in Dangrega?
Yes, we are still treating people in Dangrega, and something significantly different has changed. As you know, the borders are closed, and so our pediatric patients who used to go to see Dr. Gonzalez in Merida for some of their care, that's no longer available to them. And so we have now taken over the entirety of pediatric care, and in consultation with Dr. Gonzalez. I think one of the things that we certainly did to make the Cancer Center work when it opened 11 years ago was to actually make use of telemedicine and via conversations such as this one via Skype or FaceTime. And so we continue to use that medium to get patients seen, recognizing that we're not there physically, myself or Dr. Gonzalez, but in this day and time, telemedicine has come to the forefront to offer people care that with a provider, expert provider, that they may not have had.
So how many new patients have you taken on since people can no longer travel across the border to get their cancer treatments?
You know, the numbers are still coming in, and it seems like every day we're getting someone contacting the center asking us to take over their care, and we're happy to do that. I think one of my only concerns are principally, getting medicines to the country, given that pretty much everything is closed off. But I think with some of the contingency plans we have in place, that we'll be able to ride out this crisis, and everyone should be seen, and we'll have enough medicines available to get everyone treated. And I really don't think we'll have anyone lingering out there who won't have access to treatment.
That's very comforting to hear, because that was the first thing that came to mind. Would you have enough of the treatment? Because I know you would usually send it from where you are.
Yes, and it was close, but we made it. As I said, it's in some of the things that came to pass. I anticipated some of the things that would have happened, just given the fear from the pandemic, and so we were able to try to project into the future the things we would need, and to get them in clinics so people would have access.
I think that feeds into what was going to be my next question, and what I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds, especially if they are receiving treatment or if they do have a history of cancer. It's how best they themselves should prepare for the pandemic, or what preparations they should be making as we know that the COVID-19 continues to spread. So if you are a patient, what would be your advice as to what they should be getting in place?
I think mostly it's trying to remain isolated as much as possible, and I think that becomes difficult because you generally rely on access of family members and others to assist you during a time of need. And I think when you look at vulnerable patients, cancer patients, the elderly, that vulnerable population really needs the younger folks to carry out some of the missions of of isolating themselves and not to bring anything home that can infect these vulnerable patients. And so although you may have a lower risk, you need to consider the person at home next to you who may have a much higher risk. Understandably, some people, given circumstances, won't be able to isolate, but number one mission is to try to avoid those who are out in the population as much as possible.
Yeah. And there's the added layer of exposure for people to travel to Dangriga a lot of them on public transportation to get to the treatment center.
Yes, the population is definitely one that's out in public, and I would make an appeal to to those who would be able to transport patients so that they would avoid public transportation to please, this is a time to offer people help. And if additionally, if you certainly feel sick or believe that you have something, please do everyone a favor and stay at home and not expose yourself, because typically by the time you have even more symptoms, you would have already infected even more people. So although people always say I feel fine and I could still go do this, but if you are experiencing symptoms, then you should just stay away.
What added level, because to be clear, once someone gets treated for cancer, they're already very exposed to any illness because of what the medicine does to their body. What added layers of protection or prevention have you been communicating to your patients?
It's in patients who receive chemotherapy, it all depends on what you're being treated for and how much therapy you get, and your immune system certainly can be compromised, and in a way more so that you will, whatever it is that hits you, you're more likely to get it more severe. Whereas in somebody else would weather the storm a lot easier, and some of the populations where we really have to lower their white blood cell count quite a bit would tend to be more vulnerable. But in general, it's just trying to keep people as well as possible, so that whatever comes their way, they can weather that storm, although they may be more at risk than the average person.
How concerned are you for your patients in Belize?
Oh, quite concerned. Quite concerned, and I think our staff of Sister Gladden and Pauline Okolo have done a wonderful job and continue to do amazing things, and we need to keep them healthy. So please stay away from our nurses. We need them healthy. Yeah. And we have instituted additional cleaning measures in the center. We have provided masks to patients to help them out when they're in public, and providing them with education. It is a time of great concern, and with some hope this will all abate in a short time.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned the people that you have. I know Nurse Obi that is there, and you have a couple other staff members. Have you added restrictions in who can visit the center along with the patient?
Ideally, it should be one accompanying a person, and the fewer people that come in, the better off everyone is, and it's not being
adhered to.
Iron-handed at this time. It's just best for everyone that people have less access, and the fewer people you have, the smaller chance you have of transmitting something to someone else who is vulnerable. Yeah. I think sometimes it's something difficult for people to get, but we're just trying to do our best to keep everyone healthy and around for a long time.
A lot of times when you talk about cancer, it's nothing like COVID, but one similarity it has is that sometimes you may not know you have it. And it's very difficult to communicate health messages to people for illness they cannot see, or for them to take the correct action for illnesses they cannot see. What have you found to be effective, even in the work that you're doing there, to get people to understand the risks that you have in contracting it and more so spreading it?
You know, I think people are aware, and they, you know, are frightened. And I think some of the things you don't really need to communicate, because the patients already get that they're at risk. I think it's really trying to look at the population at large who haven't seen anything like this before, and have them understand that they have a greater role in protecting the health of others. And so while you yourself may not be in a high risk group, your mother, grandfather, uncle, aunt may be in a higher risk group, and your activity can really place them at risk. And so you bear the burden, although not for yourself, but you bear that burden of impacting family members.
Yeah. You know, as a healthcare provider, I'm sure you watch all the coverage that's taking place, you hear what people are saying and see the different messages. There's two extremes. You have where people are complacent, and you have people who are panicked. You know, what's your message?
You know, I think the panic is really related to the unknown, and I think sometimes people don't really, you know, look at the sources where the information is coming from. And you know, education always remains a powerful thing, and unless you really look for yourselves at credible sources, then you tend to digest a whole lot of garbage. And so I would first say, you know, find credible sources where you can really believe the information, and that someone is not trying to, you know, to have gain from it. The part of the panic is really from people believing that, you know, and getting the impression that everybody will die from, you know, from infection of this virus. And while some will die from infection, the majority of people will do well. But part of them doing well is, you know, is listening to what people are saying, and trying to follow some of the recommendations coming from the healthcare people. We may look back at some of the things and say, oh, we didn't really need to do that. But at this point in time, we don't know that. Yeah. And whenever humans are confronted with the unknown, they tend to panic, and it's a natural human reaction. But I would say to take time out whenever you hear something and process the information, and find faces other than places to get information other than Facebook and social media. You know, you have time on your hands to actually read, go online, you know, look at credible sources, and I think you will find some calming answers there that don't come at you, you know, with, you know, typed all in capital letters, and telling you to go buy toilet paper all day long. But it's just a matter of trying to be informed, and to listen, and to you know, and to just take 5 seconds to think before, and process the information before you scream and run.
Yeah.
And I also imagine that you have, you know, received a whole lot of inquiries about this, and some based on, you know, credible information, some based on false information. And I guess, I don't know, do you have any sort of maybe recommended sources, or at least a sort of message that will keep people calmer?
You know, I've done a lot of reading. I've read research papers. I've read newspaper articles. I've gone to see what the Belgians have done, what their national recommendations were, the Indians, the Americans, and there's certainly a lot of variation
Yeah.
around. The one theme that's been consistent has been distancing, which we're practicing this morning to an extreme. In social distancing, I think that has been one constant. Therapy recommendations have been all over the map, and and this is new, and so all the information coming forth is new, and some of the things that people are doing are not quote unquote given the stamp of approval or have been FDA approved, because it is also new. But whenever you're combating a new fire, you have to begin somewhere, and part of that is offering people therapy that the test tubes say may work, and over time you will figure out what was the best thing to do. And typically you figure out the best thing to do near the end rather than at the beginning.
That's the truth. It's interesting as you read all the information that comes out, and because we are still learning about this virus, it's not even 3 months old yet. We're seeing changes in the messages as time progresses, and that's hard for people to be able to have full trust when they hear in the beginning, it's only the elderly population. Now we hear of more young people being hospitalized. We hear of differing fatality rates in different countries. And so people aren't quite sure what to expect because the information just keeps on changing.
I think although the information has changed, I don't think it really, some of it has changed, and I think we suffer sometimes from having incomplete information, and that makes it more confusing.
Yeah.
The younger population you speak of, and there have been increased hospitalization rates seen here in younger people. But if you dig a little deeper, you actually find that some of these guys were vaping. Although people don't like to think of smoking marijuana as smoking, it's still smoking. And so some of these folks who do things which can impact the lungs, they are affected more seriously by the virus. And this would be a good time to consider stopping smoking and vaping, as those things place you at risk.
Yeah.
So when you kind of look and you see some of the new information or the new figures coming about, they don't really come with the asterisk that tells you why people were there.
Yeah. And just a lot of people know your face. A lot of people have heard you, have seen you in Belize. What would be your advice to Belizeans right now about ensuring that we do our part in flattening the curve?
I think the best thing would be continue social distancing and listen to the directives coming from the folks up top. And although some of them seem extreme at times, these are we're living in a different time, and it calls for different measures. Although some seem drastic at the moment, and I think the sooner you can get control of the virus, then the sooner a lot of these measures can be lifted and people can return to a daily life that they remembered before the virus and before everything was closed down.
Yeah.
But reducing the spread and by social distancing and not placing others at risk is the best way to get control of a situation and beginning to get back to normal life.
Yeah. And to your patients who I'm sure are watching, or to people who are concerned about getting the next treatment?
You know, the center is open and available for you, and we continue our mission of providing cancer care to the country, and I think the worry that, you know, the next treatment might not be there, not true. We are there and the doors are open. I would ask that, you know, any family, friends, you know, keep our nurses, keep away from our nurses. We need them to be healthy and safe.
And if someone wants to start to receive treatment from the center, what do they have to do?
Simply contact the center, and there's some information we do need from them. That principal piece of information we do need. We absolutely have to have a piece of paper that says that you have cancer, and we will work with you from there and get you in the system as soon as possible.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Dr. Grant.
Oh no, thank you for having me, and you have a wonderful day, and stay corona free.
All right, and you stay safe as well.
Thank you. Have a great one.
All right, and there we had it. That was an update with Dr. Ellsworth Grant, of course, from the Dangriga Cancer Center, talking about the risks, the level of risks associated with people who are receiving treatment, and the work that continues at the Dangriga Cancer Center. All right, we'll take that break now, and when we come back, our focus is going to be on the hotel industry with a representative of the Belize Hotel Association. So stay tuned.
65
back, jumping right into our second conversation. As we know, in the wake of the COVID-19 world pandemic, worldwide and Belize, one of the hardest hit industries has been tourism and specifically hotels. And here to talk to us this morning about how that has affected Belize in terms of hotels and what we can look forward to in the future, we are speaking with Ted Tejada, who is the president of the Belize Hotel Association. And good morning, Ted.
Good morning. Good morning, Gavin and Marlene.
Yeah. So, I started out by saying, of course, we know that this has been a huge impact on the hotel industry in Belize.
Yes.
So perhaps you can start by maybe describing sort of what the current situation is and how the virus has affected the hotels so far.
Yes. So what we did, we started 1 week ago. We hired 12 individuals to help us to put a census together. And as you know, there's approximately 900 hotels around the country of Belize. So if we physically called every single hotel that exists in the country of Belize, surprisingly, 70% of them we were able to get a hold. The other 30% had got completely closed by then. At that point in time, we still had flights. As you know, the last flight left on Monday.
Yes.
So there were still the 10% of guests in the hotels that were waiting for that final flight to get out of the country. But as of today, as you know, the major sector, which is San Pedro, which has over 20% of the entire hotel rooms, is quarantined for 31 days. So there's no activity happening. The rest of the country has also dried out. It's completely dried. So at this point of time, we have 99% of the hotels actually closed down indefinitely, because we do not know when this is going to stop. Yes.
So I'm trying to, we know the numbers that the BTB's been reporting for years, and it's just been a constant climb in terms of people coming to Belize, and even what was usually the slow season, it extended,
Yes.
the high season extended into what used to be the slow season. So people went from the peak just flatlining.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's so unfortunate, because, when we look at other pandemics such as a hurricane, we know 1 month in advance that we are going into the hurricane season. Hotels tend to kind of cut down their staff, getting prepared. We buy our plywood, we start getting ready for, if in the case that happens, 3 weeks in advance, we know where it is going to go. In this particular case, there was no warning. Not only that, we are in the high season. Hotels had employed more people than they actually needed. This was one of the best years we had seen. Actually, March, we can say that most of the hotels were already booked for Easter. We had operators calling and said, "Do you know who has rooms? We need rooms." Wow. We couldn't find rooms. So most of the hotels were completely full. And this pandemic, in 1 week, everybody just had their revenue just washed away in 1 week.
Now, hotels are usually prepaid, though. Did you refund? Did you give a voucher? I mean, what was the recommendation, or what was the expectation from customers?
The expectation of most of the customers, and I think the right thing to do was to, in terms of especially corporate hotels, was to refund the money. The corporate chains such as the Best Westerns, the Radissons, the Hiltons, they oblige you. Actually, their cancellation is 72 hours prior to your arrival.
Okay.
And due to this pandemic, was forced on us to give back the money. Okay. At this point in time, many airlines refuse to do so. I was reading an article yesterday that there will be cases where they will be forced to give back the money to the customers. It is a customer, it is not a God sent in disease. So it's something that is going to cost, at this point in time, even more hardship, because some of the hotels will see chargebacks on their bank accounts from individuals going to the bank and said, "I didn't go and I need my money."
Yeah. What's your estimated loss of revenue?
I would say, when I looked at it after the census, we have about 9,000 room nights in the country. We figured out that the employment in Belize is 0.9 of a room. So The international numbers is like every room you have one employee. So if you have 9,000 rooms, you have 9,000 employees. In Belize, we were able to find that it's like 0.9, close to the 1%. So that means that the hotels themselves employ close to 9,000 employees. But you got to realize the effect it has, because you have your operators, you have your guides, you have the archaeological sites, you have the taxi drivers, you have the vegetable guy, you have the chicken guy, all of those, Boyne that produces the drinks for us, we're no longer buying from these establishments. The companies that do the ads for us, we're no longer buying ads on these. And so you can see the entire meltdown from different sectors because the tourism sector is down. We're estimating that tourism produces about $1 million Belize dollars per month in terms of revenue. 100 million, sorry, in revenue per month. So multiply that $100 million times the amount of months that this will be shut down, and that's the estimate that we're estimating how much this will affect the country of Belize.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the economic impact is one that perhaps, because we are in the thick of things right now, not a lot of people have had time, people who are not associated with the industry, to kind of let that number settle in. And it is going to be astronomical.
Yes.
The thing, though, is that the layoffs was really the first thing that people started to hear about.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
happened quickly.
Definite.
You know, it's a tough position to be put in, facing an unknown amount of time with the pandemic and not having a source of income.
That's correct.
Tell me about you. You're with Best Western.
Yes.
What did you decide to do in your individual hotel, and what's been kind of the standard?
You know, at the Best Western, we employ 114 full-time employees, not, like I said, including the contractors that do work for us and the vegetable guy that we buy, but the 114 employees. And when we were faced with a single, I can tell you within a single week, we saw the cancellations just wipe out. And you have to bear in mind one thing with this pandemic. It is not a situation that we're seeing, okay, March, we lost March, everything is dried. We've lost April, everything is dried.
Yeah.
We're going to lose June, everything is going to be dried. We're going to lose July. And so the mind of every hotelier or every business guy out there is saying, okay, we have a situation that I would like to help my employees. They have been with me for a longer period of time. But if I know I can recoup in the month of May, we can go ahead and afford it. But when you don't know if you're going to be able to stand the 1st of June or the 1st of July or the 1st of August, it becomes a nightmare because you have incurring costs. You have your mortgages to pay. You still have to keep the lights of the hotel open. You have your liabilities, your insurance that you still have to pay. So when you look at your overhead cost, you already have, let's say, $250,000 per month that you have to finance just to keep your doors open. And there's not one single drop of income coming in. At that point in time is where all the owners are starting to make decisions. And let me tell you, after doing the census, we did 70% of them actually answer the phone. And out of 70%, it was stunning to hear many of them say, I want to help my employees. I want to keep them. But the sobering question is, at what point will we be able to keep them? How long, knowing the situation that at this point, we have flights in May that you're able to book and reasonable $350, but more than likely those flights will disappear. You might still have the bookings in your system because people are saying, you know, I might be able to fly, but with the borders being closed, then those reservations will be washed out. So we're seeing reservations being washed out 1 month in advance. And so I believe we come the 1st of April, you will see the entire reservations of May completely wiped out. Comes the 1st of May, you see the entire reservations of June wiped out if we do not get a control of this.
And all of that money will have to be returned, like in your
That's
case.
correct. That's
so
correct.
whatever you currently have in the reservations that are made those are most
That's
likely
correct.
going to be returned.
That's going to be returned.
So you're not just losing from not having money coming in, you're going to have to pay out what you've already
That is the
received.
worst part, that you have collected, you have it in your receivables, in your something that you liability that you owe. Now you have to take it back. You have the bank charges that you had to pay, which most of it is about 3 to 4%, and now you have to return that money. And at the end of the day, you still have your employees that you want to keep.
So
Did you lay off people?
At this moment in time, let me tell you, we have been reviewing, which is not just laying off. You look at it, we have to close down the bars, the restaurants, the shuttles. Even if you pay your employees, you don't want them in the hotel. You do not want them having nothing to do and contaminating one another. At this point in time, we have to figure out that we don't have any in the country of Belize. We already have two cases in San Pedro. That has been isolated. What we are asking, and we need to figure it out, is that there's no more cases. We need that recess of 15 days minimum to figure out that there's no more cases, so there's some type of normality that will come back to the country of Belize. At this moment, like you said, we need to sit down very far, and we have a new norm. People are no longer venturing out to the restaurants, going out to have a drink. Why? Because they're all afraid.
Yeah.
There's a panic settling in. And until we can figure out that at this moment there's no more cases, Belize has been completely isolated apart from those 2 cases that we found. There's no more cases. I think there's going to come back a sense of ease within the population and say, you know what, the borders are closed. There's no more airlines coming in. We've spent 15 days. We figured out that there is no more of this virus in the country. There's going to be a little bit of ease from all of us to be able to venture out a little bit, because the only way you can get the virus is by somebody bringing it in.
Yeah.
And once you have isolated the country, you found the cases, then within the country, we know that we're secured.
And have you also had conversations within the association? I know that you had said earlier that you had done the census, and we've also heard the government talking about sort of how they plan to manage the situation and offer relief. So are there also conversations among the hotels themselves as to how they're going to manage this crisis and what's going to to keep the industry alive, basically?
We have to keep the industry alive. Tourism brings about 40% of the GDP of this country, which is a substantial amount. The government has come forward, and we applaud them for finding some money for not only, and we're saying, this is not going to affect only the tourism sector. It's already affecting many other sectors.
Yes.
That have been calling us and said, I had the gentleman that does our uniforms and says, hey, there's anything for us to do. Between Monday to Friday last week, we didn't get any orders. You have the radio stations that we had to reduce our contract that we have with them because we no longer need the advertising. Yeah. Nobody's venturing it out. Nobody wants to hear an advertisement. Right now, they're all about the containment and not getting infected. So there's so many different other industries that get affected because of tourism. So they decided that they will be giving $75 per employee. One of the things that we have to figure out that we are in good consultations with Carla Barnett and Chris Koyi. They are engaged with the association. They are finding out how they can help us. The only thing that we discussed, because at the press conference yesterday, they said that they will only give it to people that are fired from the industry.
Yeah.
And we want to make it very clear. There's many of our employees that have not been fired. We do not want to fire them. I have employees that have worked at the Biltmore for 15 years. Why, at this moment, you do not need the services. You don't need your bartender. Your bar is closed. So you have to fire your 5 bartenders? No, you want to retain them. The thing is that we cannot support to pay them their salaries while there's no income coming in. So Chris is going to look, and Carla is going to look into it. How do we pay these employees that are not fired?
So they're not unemployed.
They're not unemployed.
A lot of people have done this. They send them home on vacation with no leave.
Yes.
With no pay, sorry.
That's correct.
because then you're not technically terminated. You can
That's
come
correct.
back when things recover.
Yes.
But you're also not earning an income.
That's correct. I mean,
Yeah.
we have every year we have a Christmas gathering, and I'm telling you, my employees look forward to see who has 10 years, who has 15
Yeah.
years, and look forward to, oh, I just completed so many years with this company. And at this point in time, if you have to fire them just to get on that compensation package, we don't think is fair.
Yeah.
So we are saying, at this point in time, they have to understand that 99% of the hotels are closed.
Yes.
Many of us are seeing how we are going to retain some of our employees. We cannot retain all of them, but that package has to be able to help them because they're not going to be fired. But at this point, the hotels are saying, if I have to fire them to get on that package, we'll have to do so.
Wow. Well, I hope they're able to work out a solution because people do want to have something to look forward
Yes.
to when things start to normalize.
Definitely.
You know, Ted, one of the things we haven't really put into perspective is how early the tourism sector took a hit. So we didn't confirm our first case until this Monday.
Yes.
But what really happened was what was happening in the rest of the world. The minute Europe,
Yes.
for example, got cut off and the virus started to spread beyond China,
Yes.
that's when your disaster
Yes.
started. So it was way before we started to have business closures and kind of the impact happening here.
So
That's the case, right?
Yeah, that's the case.
Yeah.
I started to realize this on February 22nd. We had some business meetings actually in Milan, in Italy, and we were supposed to leave on the 26th of February.
Aren't you so glad you
Yes,
didn't
on the
go?
22nd, I get a phone call. We do have a representative in the Netherlands who says, "Have you been watching the news?" There were 14 cases at that point in Lombardo, which is very close to Milan. So immediately we decided to change tickets and say, you know what, we got to change tickets. And then there was a biggest fair in Berlin. Belize was going to advertise. And we decided, okay, we're going to go to Berlin, only to Berlin. We're no longer going to go to Italy. But within a week, and that pandemic in Italy just took ground and it's just decimated most of the cities. Berlin as well, they only had 14 cases at that point in time. It was so surprising that the federal government had to come in and lock down and said, no, this fair will not take place in my city. But you had several delegates who had traveled ahead of time, which many times we do, to do some sightseeing in the country. And within a week, from 14, it had gone to 6,000. And we can only imagine, which we had 250,000 people going to the ITB fair. What would have happened in Berlin with 250,000 from 200 countries getting together to do business? So it has decimated that. And at that point in time, I knew that it was coming down to Belize. I started sensitizing the industry, saying, listen, this is what is happening. We've already traveled from China to Italy to Berlin. It was coming down this way, and start to prepare to plan. Look at all what you need to cut. Do your math, because it's coming. And within a week, I can tell you that we saw millions of dollars just washed away within 1 week. That has recently never happened for a long time. And so when will it come back? I think we need first in Belize to figure out that Belize has no cases. Because the longer we take to figure that out, if a country, let's say Guatemala, has now cleaned itself and they're clean, but we don't know if there's still remnants of cases in Belize, it would take longer for them to do business with us.
Okay.
We need to figure out that we in Belize have no cases. At that point in time, we can also not open the borders, because the minute you open the borders, it's going to pour back in. So we need to identify the countries that have done the same thing, that have cleaned their system, and they have had 20 days without any cases before they say, you know what, we now can trade with Guatemala, we can do business with that country because that country is also clean.
How do you plan ahead for something like that? Because let's look at the different options, the different issues. One, it's how long our borders will need to be closed. If we get to a point where the 2 cases that we have are no longer active, they're recovered, we don't detect new cases in, let's say, a 15-day period or longer, and we feel that we have no more cases, we can't open borders. Well, I'm not saying that that's the case, but it would be, I'd imagine we wouldn't open the borders if people around us still have it, because you just bring it back into the country.
That's correct.
So that's one thing. You'd have to rely on local business, have Belizeans moving around. But then there's the economic impact that will happen. We know everywhere.
Definite.
And if you go back to, let's say, 2008, the last time there was the recession in the United States, it took a while before people started traveling again.
We know that this is going to take a long time before it, especially now that the U.S. is a third country with the most cases. And we rapidly see that escalation. We got to bear in mind that we get 60% of our business of tourism comes from the United States. One of the things that we need to understand that the tourism that comes to Belize is not that tourism that wants to go to Playa del Carmen and Cancun and lay on the beach and do nothing. We have more of a rustic tourism that comes and they want to do the jungle, they want to go swim with the sharks. And so we feel that that type of tourism will come back quicker. Not only that, if we were to do a study that I don't know if we've ever done it, is what is the percentage of return customers to Belize? I believe that percentage will be very high. When we look at the statistics of resorts and they come back and say, oh, I know this gentleman, I know that guest, because we have, I believe, a 30% returning customers to Belize. So that helps us a lot. They're in love with the country. They want to come back. And not only do they come back, they bring their friends when they come. So if we can be one of those countries that can start putting a flag and say we are clean before anybody else. We were one of the last ones to say we had the first case to start with. Now, not only did we had 2 cases, we're clean. We've found it, isolated them, and there's no more cases. When it's time to open the borders, I believe that we were going to be one of the first ones as well to start selling easy, because people will say, oh, they did a very good job in containing. They were able to take steps immediately and contain that and move away from it.
And I think, I would imagine that one of the things that you'd also be looking at if and when we are, COVID-free, is that one of the things that you'd also be looking at is to sort of promote local tourism while the borders are still closed.
And that's what we're saying. If at this moment, I can tell you, Marlene, even if we would like to have our restaurant open, and employ our Belizean people and say, you know what, even if 3 people come, we'll keep it open. At this moment, nobody's coming. Why? Everybody's afraid. There's fear in them that, I cannot come because I am going to get contaminated. And we have to remember, and I would like to emphasize what happened over the weekend with the first case. Where people went online and criticized this individual, we have to really make it a point that is not tolerated. It's not going to be allowed at any point.
It's counterproductive.
We have to understand this is a silent killer. I mean, I have had a close encounter with a case similar to it, where the individual traveled to Belize, and the case did not become positive until the individual went back to the U.S. The situation is that the individual lives in New York, and the time that it took, by the time he came to Belize and the case was declared, it was 12 days after. 12 days after. So you say, by the time this individual came, by the time you found out, it's 12 days after. In this case, the Ministry of Health was able to map and say, this individual caught it on the way out. He went through Miami to New York, which is the hotbed, and he got infected. By the time he arrived in the U.S. and he reported it, it had been 5 days. So it kind of has a correlation. But I'm telling you, the chills that it sends to your back, that anybody can contaminate you. You are drinking that coffee. If you were in my restaurant and you were contaminated, my waiter will pick it up and take it to the back. That she just got contaminated by serving you. The person that washes that cup just got contaminating by taking that cup to wash it. And we just contaminated 2 that will go home and contaminate their home. And how can we penalize them for serving you? I mean, just put yourself in that situation. We all can get contaminated very easily, especially the customs officers, the immigration officers, the airline staff. the hotel staff, the doctors. So we have to really make some noise about that, that we have to be careful about that, how we're penalizing people with.
It seems to me very clearly from what you have communicated so far, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you perhaps feel that we should move into a lockdown phase.
You know, we're recommending that at this moment, we need to figure out that the country is clean. We're saying we can see, like I said, in this particular case, the peoples that can get affected. My waiters that serve an individual that gets on the bus to goes home, that goes to a shop to buy, that uses the ATM machine, not knowing that this virus is going, using that particular scenario, how much people can get to affected. How can we map that? It's impossible to map it. 11 days after, I'll be honest with you, I looked at the whole scenario. It's impossible to map that 11 days after. If you knew by the following day, then you say, oh, I was here, and these are the people around me. 11 days after, I mean, I can't even remember where I was. So it is a silent killer that we don't know. It takes between 0 to 14 days to peep outside with his head, and by then, we have a situation that might become uncontrollable. So I think for the population, we are all living with fears in our own homes. Like I said, every day that I go home, I mean, I just this week, on Monday, when they blocked down San Pedro, I had people checking at the hotel, and I told my front desk, but we don't have any reservations. Who are these people? Oh, Mr. Ted, these are the ones that got stranded that couldn't go to the airport. So I personally went to speak with the guests and said, where are you heading? He said, oh, we're heading to San Pedro, but the flights are canceled, the boats are canceled. We just arrived on the flight. I said, where are you coming from? From New York. And I said, how long you need to isolate yourself? He said, they didn't tell us. We don't need to isolate ourselves. I said to myself, at what point are we going to allow individuals to come into the country, not isolate themselves, coming from hotbeds? And we got to realize now the borders are closed and there's no more airlines coming in. So at that point in time, it's just a sobering saying, I have an individual checking into the front desk from a hotbed, from the United States. The entire United States now has become a hotbed. And we are not dictating to them that they must isolate themselves minimum 14 days.
So what are you, I mean, the last flight that left Belize was on Monday.
On Monday, yes.
There were people who still came in. A lot of Belizeans came home.
That's correct.
And that means that your staff, you've had a lot of exposure.
That's correct.
What do you have practices in place, kind of
We
monitoring symptoms and whatnot?
We have been, actually from last week, we have a person in the lobby checking temperatures with a temperature laser gun that will tell us if the individual is 37 degrees Celsius and below. Anybody that is above, if it is an employee, we immediately are not allowing them to come into the compound. We are sending them home. Not are we only sending them home, we are asking them to immediately contact the medical attention and say, hey, I have a fever, I need some medical attention. If it's a guest, which we have not had in the case, we would have done the same thing. We had designed 4 rooms as an isolation rooms where we would have checked them in and recommend that we called medical attention so that they can be checked because their temperature would be above. We have sanitizers all over the lobby. We sanitize the front desk as soon as somebody leaves. You got to realize we're in the hospitality industry. So we cannot show the guest, for example, take your passport and say, okay, you've been through China or you've been, it is not recommended.
You can't
discriminate anybody, but it's a tough situation.
So your last guest who came in from an international flight to check in
was on Monday.
Was on Monday.
That's correct.
So you're not really sure till 14 days from now.
That's correct.
Are they self-isolating from what you're seeing, the guests that have checked in?
You know, I checked on Tuesday because I was leaving the hotel when I spoke with the guest in a meeting. I checked on Tuesday and the guest had checked out. That I know the guest was heading to San Pedro. I don't know where the guest ended up, but just shows to tell me that, you know, there's no follow-up or quarantine being practiced. And that's the dangerous part of it. That every guest that came in through the airport for this last week, the authorities had to put them on mandatory quarantine. Yes, if you're coming into the country, before you board the plane, sir, ma'am, you're coming from a hot area, we will allow you, you're a Belizean.
These were Belizeans that checked in?
This was not a Belizean,
Oh,
it was
okay,
an American.
Okay, just making
But
sure.
even an American,
Yeah.
you know, if you have decided to come and we know the situation, we should have mandatorily said you need to isolate yourself for 14 days. Some have some tracking system. It's very hard. I mean, you have, in that plane, she told me there were 14 people on that flight. So there's 14 individuals coming in. So we need now to track 14 individuals. And then you had an Air Canada, WestJet, American Airlines. So you have several airlines coming in. And that, so it's a difficult situation. But yes, from Monday when the borders were completely shut, at that point in time, we need to have taken a recess and say, you know what, let's find out that there's no cases. And once there's no cases, you're going to have a peace of mind with all of us Belizeans that the virus does not exist anymore in the country, and that we can be able to still practice the social distance, the new norm, but at least be at ease that no one in, for example, in our case, none of my staff, none of my managers are contaminated, and we don't know until that period of time.
I can hear with the example that you just gave why it's unsettling for you, the idea of people still moving around. And I think that's the consensus all around. Just before we close, the Hotel Association works closely with BTB, local agencies, but you also have partners in other parts of the world. What's kind of the collective thinking at this time? Is it just sitting ducks, waiting to see what's going to happen?
No, I think we are looking at data. We have data. That's the beauty about the tourism industry. You know, data is very important. Right now, all the bookings for the entire world, Central America and the Caribbean, has completely ceased. So we know, for example, Belize, all the islands have a 90 days booking window, meaning that people are booking 90 days in advance. That has ceased. And so countries that are taking the measures where they're locking down and leaving the essential services, pharmacies, grocery stores open so that the population can still get their medicine there. I mean, we believe, we haven't seen it because it's an early stage and they're still infected and they haven't been cleaned, but we believe that they will be able to start doing business as soon as they get over the crisis. It is too early to say, but no, the countries, we are not at all right now marketing anything. We'll be honest with you, nobody's listening to your marketing message out there. Doesn't matter if it's a free room, they're still not listening to the free rooms. They at this moment want to find out, how do we contain it? How do we get a grasp of it? I mean, our partners, our operators, all of them are right now dealing with losses. People that had groups coming in from Guatemala, Belize, Mexico, these groups got stranded at different places. I mean, I had a group coming in from Mexico that was just before the border closed, one day before, and they were going Mexico, Belize 2 nights, and then going into Guatemala. The group ended up going back to Cancun. What does that mean is you got to change all your tickets because they were supposed to leave out of Guatemala, not of Cancun. So these companies inherited tremendous losses that right now they're all just trying to figure out how they're going to pay these losses. In Guatemala, they closed the country, the entire country, for 15 days. So they cannot even go to work to figure out. They're at home trying, they still have to pay their employees. They have these losses at hand. They're trying to figure out how do we. But all I can say is that everybody's ready. Everybody's ready
to get back
start
to business.
And
that's what I hear from you. You know, there are a lot of concerns, and I think you, of course, we all are concerned, but because it's directly affecting or severely impacting the tourism industry. But I still hear optimism. That once things normalize, you feel that those people who love Belize will make an effort to get back here as quickly as possible.
Definitely.
Ted, thank you for coming in and giving us an update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, cleaning your house, disinfecting your surfaces. We're going to get some expert advice to make sure you're doing it right. Please stay tuned.
No tricks,
right, we're back. And we're moving into our final conversation for today. As we said, a lot of us are at home. A lot of us have stocked up on cleaning supplies. And we are trying to be as hygienic as possible in cleaning surfaces. But are we doing it right, and are we doing it enough? Well, we asked an expert to come in. Of course, we asked Andre Mahler of Carpet Care Plus Belize to share some of the tips from years of experience in cleaning spaces, right?
Hi, good morning everybody. My name is Andre Mahler. I am the owner of CCP Belize, formerly Carpet Care Plus.
Okay.
Actually, we do a lot more than cleaning of carpets and
Yes.
need the reason for the change in name. CCP, Commercial Cleaning and Products.
Yes. And this is part of why you have so much information that you can share with us. Now, when people are thinking of going in and disinfecting their houses, we do the traditional. We sweep, we mop, we wipe down, and that's it. But at a time we're being told that we need to make sure our surfaces and our homes are as clean as possible and disinfected, what are some of the things or advice that you can tell people?
Okay, the first thing, there's a difference between cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting,
Okay.
right? Cleaning is, you do it every day. You wipe it down, you move the major stuff, right? Sanitizing, you're moving some of the bacteria and viruses. Disinfecting, you're moving 100%. Disinfecting is what when the hospital does a operation, they will disinfect, right? They're moving 100% of the germs, bacteria, viruses, everything from walls, floors, every square inch, square centimeter of that room, including the equipment, everything.
Yeah.
All right.
And how do you do these? I mean, we're aiming for disinfecting.
Right. And at your home.
Yes.
Let's take it room by room.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I think let's start with common spaces where people are sharing and coming in, right?
Okay.
So like your living room,
Your
the
living
entrance,
room.
the door.
Right, your living room. For the couch, the remote, right? But even in your living room, you tend to use this the most. And this is one of the things that is transferring a lot of germs. And when was the last time you cleaned yours? We're in COVID-19
No,
right now.
I do it every 2 days. That's my new practice. Probably not enough, but
Right.
with
And
the
then-
Clorox wipes.
Right, but that's good.
Okay.
That's good. There's not much other thing because you can't put water on it.
Yeah.
But you need to take off the cover and clean it good.
Yeah, and the little pop-up thingy.
Right.
Because that's what you hold the most to.
Right. Then
Yeah.
there's things like phone soap and stuff. Things that you put the phone in and it has a UV light on it for some minutes and it's supposed to disinfect the phone. Right. So those things are available. Probably
Yeah.
not in Belize, but they are available now. And now we're just thinking of this now. And in the end of the day, maybe this will help us in the end because we will start to practice better hygiene.
That's right. That's right. I've never been more committed to cleaning my phone than I am during this time.
I know, but and if we go back to, say, for example, the living room, right, there's a whole lot of there might be a whole lot of different types of surfaces that could be in that thing that require different types of cleaning, right? So, for example, if you have a couch, if it's fabric, if it's leather, if it's something, all of that you have to approach differently, correct?
Right, correct. Okay, right now we have to use bleach. Usually, for me, being a commercial cleaner, I don't really use bleach. But bleach is something that's really effective and it can be used in a push. Usually, when I'm doing this, I would use a hospital grade sanitizer disinfectant that is certified by the EPA. The reason for that is that you understand the standard of what it's going to do.
Yeah.
Right? And in commercial cleaning, you have gallons of products that can represent a drum of ready-to-use product in 1 gallon. I have a product that it's half gallon, but you put 1 ounce in a gallon, and you fill that with water, and that 1 ounce in the gallon is the diluted ratio needed to disinfect hard surfaces.
This is really critical because I think at this point no one can find some of the disinfecting sprays that they were looking for or some of the cleaners that they usually use. But there are concentrated stuff that you can use. A gallon of bleach can go a long way.
A gallon of concentrated bleach is kind of like the certified stuff that
Yeah.
you're using to clean, because you only need a little bit in a large amount of water, and you are disinfecting the place.
Okay, so that's
Right.
where we can start for people who have bleach home.
Okay.
Right? So you mix it with water, and then you just wipe, you just
Let,
clean.
okay, let me explain. There's two types of cleaning. There's like your maintenance cleaning.
Okay.
That's the quick thing to do for today or for this minute. And then there's your deep clean.
Okay.
And you need to do both of them in order to keep something clean for a period of time. I don't want. Let's take like your toilet. How often do you clean your toilet? All right?
Once a week.
Once a week. But you should be maintenance cleaning it with a disinfectant every day,
Okay.
right? There are studies that show that your phones have more germs
Than
than
the
your
toilet
toilet
seat.
than your toilet.
I heard that, yeah.
Right? So don't take it in the bathroom,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because I don't want to. Let's get back to the
Let's
couch.
not elaborate
right?
on that one. But I have a question though, because before we even move into the specifics, there are some things like the phone that we don't think about cleaning that needs to be cleaned. Tell us about some of those.
Well, cleaning the phone, the thing is to use wipes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you can also use a microfiber rag and you clean it off
Okay.
regularly.
Yeah.
You can, if you don't have any of the wipes, there's no problem to putting a Clorox
Yeah.
on a rag and to wipe it down.
Okay.
Now we're in times where we have to do it rather than, and you might not have exactly what you want, but you have what will work.
Yeah. So we
And
can
because the
always
bleach
use
will
that
work,
Clorox,
right.
that bleach and water
Right.
solution.
And if that's good to do your floors, your walls, all painted surfaces, your
walls, we should
countertops.
do walls?
Yeah. See,
Okay.
walls is the deep part of the cleaning,
Okay.
right?
Because we do touch walls a lot.
Yes.
That's what we don't realize.
You don't really have to worry about the ceiling,
Yeah.
right? But you worry about the floor.
Yeah. Or as we walk past, we
like-
touch.
I like to tell people 8 foot high and down,
Okay.
right? And usually what we do is we to disinfect, we'll use a pump-up sprayer, and we'll spray the entire wall, ceiling, and then you have to wipe it. It's a couple of steps you use
Okay.
where you put it. You have a lot of these disinfectants have what's called dwell time. There's a certain amount of time it needs to sit on the surface
Yeah.
for it to work.
Yeah.
Not everything works on contact,
Yeah.
right?
And it's the same with the Clorox, with the bleach, right? Like it has to dry on the surface.
You wipe it, make sure you get the entire surface. At this time, once you're not putting food directly on it, it's better to leave the residue on it, right? A lot of times you clean the residue off, right? But leaving the residue on it, and you're doing it regularly now.
Yeah. So the phone is one. The walls. I really didn't think about the walls. Because sometimes there's like certain walls that you always lean on, or that you'll touch as you open a door or hold yourself up. Maybe as you take off your shoes.
Somebody was sitting there and you wanted to sneeze and it's a wall. Or, you know,
I didn't think
a
about
lot
that.
a lot
Yeah.
of these things,
Yeah.
right?
And even what you mentioned just now, you said how often do you clean your toilet? I wonder how many people take time to clean the little knob.
And the toilet is a large part of cross contamination,
Exactly.
Yeah.
right?
I mean-
see in commercial cleaning, you never use a mop, a towel, anything. A lot of times you color code them
Yeah.
because you only use that in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You only use what you need in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then and then everything is everywhere else. And the reason is for the same cross contamination. But you can also have just contamination. A lot of us have pets in our homes.
Yes.
They do make mistakes and like might pee
Yeah.
or poo on the. How you clean that? Do you disinfect it or you just pick it up and throw it away? What happens when your 6-year-old son starts rolling on the floor and the residue of that? Then he jumps on the couch, jumps in your bed. I don't want to go any further. I see your
know.
face.
Andre, you have a dirty mind. I can imagine. You probably think of germs everywhere you go.
No, well, actually, a lot of times, if you're going to clean a couch,
Yeah.
you turn off the light, you use a black light, and you can see organic matter on the couch.
Okay.
And I have come across cases where the pet's hair is dropping off, and when you do the
All you see is pet hair.
all you see is, well, not only hair, you also see the fetal waste and pee are organic things. So when you do it, you see the organic things on it.
So you maybe never knew that the dog used the bathroom on the chair and it's there.
Right. Or it can come from the floor to the chair.
Yeah, see? So I think, like, with all that in consideration,
a lot.
I know, right? So, I think the question in my mind is then, we are talking about the different levels of cleaning, right?
Yeah.
So we know we do our everyday things or we wipe down the stuff. So how often would you recommend you actually go and do a real deep cleaning and disinfecting in your home?
In your home, okay, like let's take it what the commercial people do.
Okay.
You have certain things like you have to do multiple times a day. Your countertops, right? Anywhere that you're touching your center table, the things that you use a lot.
Yeah.
You have to, you do them, sometimes you clean before, you clean after, right? And then you have things that you clean daily. That's like, you should do a maintenance clean on the toilet daily.
Yeah.
Right? You should vacuum your area rug daily. You should, right? But you vacuum your couch once a month, and you pick up all of the dust and dirt and
Yeah.
right. You can go farther and use the alcohol. 70% alcohol will sanitize, and you can put that
So
on
like just the rubbing alcohol, that was another one I heard, that just the regular alcohol that we buy, once it has 70%, that's a cleaner too. Like you
Right.
could use that instead of hand sanitizer too.
Right. Right.
So-
and for all your DUI people,
Yeah.
there's where you pull out the core of toilet paper, you put it in, you soak it with the alcohol, and you pull it out as wipes.
And you have wipes.
Right.
Smart. Okay.
Right.
So we talked of remotes, we talked of phones, we talked of walls, door handles, and like the doors itself. Those are
Door
really
handles, refrigerator door handles, microwave door handles,
Cupboard doors.
covers, light switches.
Yeah.
Right? Things that you touch constantly and all the time.
Okay. These are all things, and those can be done just wiping down.
Right. If you don't have
And
anything that
regularly.
same, yeah. Usually, what you do is you take your solution mixed with Clorox or with the alcohol, you put it in a spray bottle, and you can spray the light switch, wipe
Okay.
it. That's it.
Okay.
Leave it it will stay there, right? But those things you have to do multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Like in the living room, you have somebody that's supposed to be self-quarantining, right? They're in one room. So when they eat, right, because you're pushing it under the door like prison, right?
Yeah.
So when they eat, right, and you take that back out, what should you do with it? You need to use the bleach
That's
again,
true.
even before you take it to the kitchen.
Yeah, because that might have the virus on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Then let's take it a little bit in Belize. We know we have a lot of people that don't have multiple rooms in their homes. So then they will be in a more difficult position if one person has to be quarantined. What do you do? Because the bathroom,
If they're gonna
having one
share a
bathroom is a
bathroom.
problem.
Yes.
Right. So every time that person, you have to disinfect it.
Yeah. You might have to go back to old school and give them a bucket. Then they only get to bathe one time a day. I'm serious, because
But no,
imagine if every time they need to pee, they go to the bathroom, you have to give it a thorough, because they would have walked in,
And what they're
maybe
touching.
coughed, you sit, stand, whatever, wash hands. All of these things would have to be cleaned every time they
Every
needed
time.
to go.
So now let's take it out to the business.
Okay.
Businesses that are still open, that are necessary to be open.
Yeah.
There's a line outside, say the bank,
Yeah.
and 10 people at a time are allowed in. What do those tellers do after every person, and before and in between?
See, I've thought about this with the grocery clerks.
Same
Because
thing.
they hold everything that I've held, scan it, and then put it in the bag, which oftentimes the person who's bagging it would also touch it as well.
The bank, you're dealing with money,
Yeah.
you're dealing with,
Yeah.
right?
And money itself has a lot of
Has a
germs
lot
in
of germs.
Okay. So we clean the money too, or we just wash our hands
Yeah.
afterwards?
I
Well,
guess
I'm hoping
get, I
everybody's
guess
using
get
clean
online
money.
more, and but it's a necessary evil, I guess.
All right. So we talked, okay, let me see what else we haven't tackled. We did the doors. You should clean all areas of the doors or just the handles?
Okay, the handles is regularly and more frequently is the minor cleaning.
Yeah.
The entire door when you're disinfecting the entire place.
Yeah.
Right.
Because sometimes you hold the door itself and like pull it open if you don't have to turn the knob.
A lot of times, learn to open the door without touching the knob. A lot of times the germs, for like, okay, example, you use the bathroom, right? You wash your hand, but before you come out, you touch the, you flush the toilet because you didn't do it before, right? So you're taking that, you touch the handle,
Yeah.
right?
So now it's on the
And
handle.
No, it's on the handle, and then you walk outside,
Yeah.
right? Using this in the phone,
Yeah.
the phone in the bathroom, and then taking it and put it on your countertop that you're going to prepare food.
Okay. All of this
Right?
transfer that I'm thinking about that may take place. But another important one, which is why the current hand washing advice is that you use paper to turn off the faucet.
Right.
Because the faucet itself, like the knob, has a lot of germs too.
Right.
How often do you clean that and how do you clean that?
Well, again, it's the solution, whatever you're using, because you can use the alcohol, or you can use the bleach, or you can use the hospital grade disinfectant. Spray it on the knob, leave it, and go. And you can do that, what, 6, 8, 10, 12 times a day.
Okay.
And especially if you have people coming in. See, there's a everything in cleaning usually depends on the amount of use it gets.
Okay.
Right? How often you have to mop your floor depends on the amount of traffic over it. So everything is like that. So and that's the reason why the social distancing will work, because you're away and that sort of thing.
So like an office lobby, for example, that has traffic.
That has traffic.
Yeah.
In this day.
Yeah,
for
in this day. Yeah, we're talking about now. People who
Okay.
need to clean more than they've ever cleaned before.
During the day, between every customer, you need to be cleaning, right? So that's when you'll be using your sanitizing wipes or a spray or something that you're disinfecting the area between people,
Okay.
right? And then you need the big cleaning. Usually what you need to do is disinfect the entire thing at the end of the day to be ready for the next day and be free for the next day, right? And some of those things you don't know if they're being done.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I hope the supermarkets do it, for example. I know some of them do earlier hours for elderly people, and yeah, I mean, we have to consider the spaces we're going into as well, and how often they're clean or how well they're clean.
And how well they're clean. And you need to make sure of it for yourself right now.
Yeah.
Right? That's the main thing. Don't do anything, right? You shouldn't do. Don't be.
So I have another one.
I
for
came in
you.
here today and we didn't shake hands.
No. Wait.
Right? That's one of the new normal.
I think we're what, 1 week strong, Gavin,
Wait.
of no hand touching, no contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very unnatural.
I noticed
Sitting at
the
3 feet.
Yeah,
on
we
the-
2 or 3 feet.
and I am all the way here.
And you're at 6. So we're doing our part, but I think we still don't think of, even if Gavin and I have no contact, if we touch this couch, whatever I touch goes on the couch and he touches it. So
And-
things like that happen as well. The transfer is so easy.
And it can be especially difficult, back in the home, because if you have especially if you have a big family, or like you said, if
Yeah.
all of us, if it's a family that, is not living, if it's multiple people in kind of close quarters, then of course the risk is much higher, because if you have people, let's say 5, 6, 7 people in one household coming in, bringing, especially in the common areas like the living room, like the kitchen, then the risk is much higher. So as you were saying, the amount of cleaning that you're required to do is higher as well.
Right. it has to be higher because you're using the place more and there's more people in
And
there.
it could just be that one family member that's a bit lazier to wash their hands all the time that could bring everything in.
But
yeah.
you know, what I was also thinking just now, because we spoke about different rooms in the house, and it just occurs to me that we haven't really spoken about the bedroom. And the bedroom itself has a lot of surfaces that could get contaminated. And I'm thinking a lot of the fabric or the cloth, because if you
Right.
think
Like the mattress?
exactly, that's what I was going at. You have the sheet, the mattress could be blanket, pillowcase, all kinds of different things that could.
See,
The
mattress is
germaphobe
something.
inside me is going crazy at these Taka.
Mattress is something that should be cleaned at least once a year, professionally cleaned. Remember, a day is what, 24 hours? How much do you spend in your bed?
Well, it depends on what you do.
Well, let's say
Yeah.
if you do get 8 hours of sleep, or even
It's
if you
1/3
watch-
of the day.
or even if you watch TV or whatever in your bedroom,
Yeah.
some people do. So
Yeah.
it could be even more than 8 hours.
Here,
Yeah.
you cough, you don't
Yeah.
cover because you're the only one in your room. It goes
Yeah.
on the bed.
Yeah.
I was thinking something else. I was thinking car.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the surfaces? So I did start like wiping the steering wheel
Right.
with Clorox wipes.
Right. That's
Uh,
like the
that's
maintenance
only
part
one.
of it.
What else should we be cleaning? Where else? It's a car, for example, carries different people, goes different places. You don't usually get to wash your hands between being in public and going in the car. So you're taking it into the car for sure.
The sanitizer, the hand sanitizer should be used when you're not in a place to use soap and
Okay.
water. And we seem to be using the sanitizer as the first thing you should be doing. It actually should be the soap.
Yeah.
Then you use the So a good thing to do is to have the sanitizer on you when you get in your car. In your car, you can keep yourself the Clorox. But what about the gear stick? What about the
Radio?
Radio, the seat belt, the different things.
Seatbelt, you're right. And even the handle outside.
And-
And the handle inside.
Right. And so everything. You have chairs just like your couch in there.
Yeah.
Right? You have plastics, the dashboard and everything, just like your countertops. Are you touching them? You're putting food things on them. What are you doing? And depending what you're doing in your car is how often you need to clean it and how far you have to go. Right?
We're all thinking of how dirty your car are.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are at home.
Like in your car, you have a lot of people's car are like a part of an extension of their house.
Yes.
Right? So you have a lot of the things like, okay, like say you have a young kid, that baby car seat, from the milk that's being thrown away, the orange juice,
Oh
the
my
crumbs
gosh.
in the back seat.
The surprise
right?
cookies that you find like 3 days later.
Or then you have the teenager that loves to go play sports. And he comes in and goes in the car.
Okay.
Right? Or he comes home and jumps on the couch and flips on the TV, right? And and that's normal, right, for a home. So you should be sanitizing, right, and disinfecting, right, regularly, not only because of COVID-19.
Point duly taken. I can't imagine what it's like for people at home right now. They're probably looking around at family members trying to gauge how
Yeah, I
clean.
need to stay away from you.
Okay, but Andre, this is really, it's great because we just need to think beyond just the regular surfaces. We always think of cleaning our floors and maybe a countertop here or there, but what you're reminding us is just how easily we can be accumulating germs and viruses in this case in other areas that we weren't cleaning.
Right.
And that's what we have to remember, right?
Right.
You do, are you still open? Do you still do professional cleaning at this time?
Yes. Now more than ever, people are asking for certain things. Because I am certified for mold remediation, I do a lot of disinfection.
Yeah.
Right? So yesterday I was disinfecting a place. No, they have no case, but they've worked with me and they've realized that we're doing our hand sanitizing at the door, we're doing all of that. But at the end of the day, because we're open, people are coming in, we need to disinfect everything. And it's like starting over.
Yeah.
And you should do that every day.
I'd imagine your business could give people a lot of peace of mind if they just want to know that they're starting fresh
Right.
with everything cleaned.
Yeah. No. Well, at the end of cleaning, steam cleaning your couch, when you look at what the water and the dirt that you get out of there, it's crazy. All right. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, damn, that's what I've been seeing, because it's like black like coffee. All right.
Okay. Duly noted.
In
I may
your
be-
cars
I
also.
I may take a day break to go scrub my couch right now. All right, but thank you so much for coming in, and just final advice to people as they venture off into doing the cleaning, maybe cleaning that spot on the wall they never thought of, or that refrigerator door.
I would say mix the solution, have it ready, and being able to use it as needed.
Okay.
So just
Right.
always have it handy.
Just always have it handy. You can't be too paranoid if somebody comes in, spray the door handle when they leave.
And people shouldn't be offended either.
No, no.
Next thing you know, your
Yeah.
mom will say, "Why are you spraying after me?"
For the last couple of weeks, when any employee walks in, the first thing,
Yeah.
straight to the bathroom, wash your hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much for this very revealing conversation. I will see germs everywhere I go now.
No
But,
problem.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have a wrap up, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
With over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited recognizes the importance of leading
Signing.
And we're back.
Wrapping up today's show, we had a lot of important and interesting conversations.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My mind is still not very settled after thinking of all the different areas that we don't clean enough.
Well, I know, but at least I think nowadays that everybody's a bit more sensitized.
Yeah.
Just the cleanliness in general, I think that it was definitely a really useful conversation because there are things that we don't think about. I certainly didn't think about the walls. Yeah. And how they needed to be clean, but also because of how they could have become infected. I didn't even think about the thing about coughing and sneezing.
Yeah,
and
like
how
you
things,
turn away to a wall to cough or sneeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
but that's why we had it. Because
Definitely.
sometimes we kind of need to, it is a different time that we're in, at least for now. And so we have to be hyper aware of many different threats. And so, you know, that was Andre, and clearly with the passion he has, because that's his business, he could have told us all about the dirty surfaces that we weren't cleaning, but we got some pretty interesting ones out as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. So if you're listening, I'm sure that you're probably, if you're still at home right now, you're probably planning your day about all of the different places and rooms and stuff that you've got to clean. But you know, we've been centering a lot of our conversations about the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, and that's why we're also highlighting different things about hygiene and cleanliness. But it is definitely stuff that you can always take into your everyday life in the future. It protects you and the ones that are close to you and the people who come in contact with you. So we do once again want to thank Andre for coming in and sharing all his knowledge about cleaning and how often you should clean.
That's right. We also want to thank Ted from the Belize Hotel Association for coming in. It is a real, I mean, I think I'm running out of the descriptive words to use to explain how devastating it's been for the tourism industry. And I know sometimes when we hear that, we think of resort owners and we think of employers. And they are definitely a part of the impact, but the trickle-down effect is one that we must keep bringing it to the attention of everyone. So owning the business, you have employers, you have employees, your employees have families. There are other freelancers that work with your business. There are people who you purchase things from that you're not purchasing from anymore.
No, I did really appreciate him bringing that conversation into focus because I think that what a lot of the conversation has been talking about, we talk about tourism industry and the workers that have been affected as if it's just the hotel workers and the restaurant workers, but we know that because it contributes so much to our economy, it is a huge effect. We're talking about taxi drivers, we're talking about food suppliers, we're talking about all sorts of people whose businesses are significantly been affected negatively, and I really did appreciate how Ted put that into focus for us. So that was also a great conversation, and hopefully we can be optimistic as he is about our outlook.
Yeah, I think we have no other choice but to be optimistic. We got to weather this storm, and then be optimistic about our future as to what we can do. Not that things will turn around miraculously once we're all in the clear of COVID-19.
For sure.
And then Dr. Ellsworth Grant from the Dangriga Cancer Center. A few very important reminders there. One, they are still open. They are still offering treatments. They're asking for people to not have a large group with them, just one person along with them, and make sure you keep your distance, especially from the staff and the other patients that are there. And for people who are accustomed to accustomed to getting their treatment outside of Belize, you can work out something to transfer your care to the Dangriga Cancer Center, where they'll be able to offer treatment. It was really encouraging to hear that they stocked up ahead of time so that they have enough medication, enough treatment, that is, to ensure that they can keep things going for a while. But all of these things you do want to take into consideration. One of the things he said was, you know, he'd love to see people offer to take patients down so they don't have to be exposed on public transportation. And that's, I know a lot of people are looking for ways to help and things that they can do. Maybe there's a tour guide van that could be used. Let's get a shuttle started for the Dangriga Cancer Center so the patients who are already immunocompromised from the cancer treatment don't have to have any potential exposure to COVID-19 as well.
No, absolutely. So if you are, of course, interested in doing that, then try to see if you can organize something or, you know, talk to somebody who can. And of course, bear in mind that as you move around, if you are out of your house, try to keep as in line as possible with the social distancing measures. Keep your distance from people, keep as clean as you can, wash your hands very often. And of course, here on Open Your Eyes, we're going to be keeping you updated on these...
While keeping distant.
While keeping distant, on any new developments that do, you know, relate to us, as we know the situation changes day by day. So, you know, keep yourself informed, and we'll try our best to do the same for you as well.
And you know, San Pedro residents, we are here for you as well. We know that this is a challenging time, and we all understand that. We can't necessarily, you can't leave your homes and all of these things. It's going to be really challenging, and maybe today's a great day to remind you that we are all going to get through this. We will be here with you, and the rest of the country is paying attention as well. But we got to do our part. Gavin said it right. Keep your physical distance, which means as much space as possible between you and other people. 3 to 6 feet, that's what we're talking about in terms of distance. Stay home, shelter at home. You know, when you're locked in because there's a hurricane coming, think of the same thing, just lock in at home. Don't go anywhere unless you have to. Don't go out in big groups. Don't have big groups at home. And if you are heading to work, remember those hygiene practices are really going to be important because of all the people that you're interacting with there as well, right?
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for today, though. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also drop us a line at you can drop me a line, at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ.
And also on Instagram at OIE Belize.
And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
And start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your heart open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank.